The text message glowed on my wife's unlocked phone like a neon sign advertising my stupidity. He'll be gone all weekend. You bring the wine, I'll bring the fireworks. I stood in our kitchen at 2 a.m, grease still under my fingernails from working on my pickup, staring at evidence that my 20-year marriage was apparently just another broken-down vehicle I couldn't fix. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Jack Morrison, I'm 43, own a small auto repair shop in Millbrook, Maine, and until 30 seconds ago, I thought my biggest problem was the transmission on Mrs. Henderson's Buick. Turns out, my wife Lisa had been getting her own parts serviced elsewhere. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Brad Kellerman. The cocky IT consultant who'd been coming to our backyard barbecues for 2 years, calling me bro, while apparently planning to screw my wife behind my back. I scrolled up through their conversation, each message like a punch to the gut. Months of flirting, weeks of planning meetups, days of laughing about what an oblivious fool I was. Jack's working late again. Poor baby doesn't know what he's missing. Your husband seems like a nice guy. Too bad nice guys finish last. He thinks I'm at book club. If only he knew what I was really reading. Your body language. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall, but that would wake Lisa upstairs and tip my hand. Instead, I set it back exactly where she'd left it and walked outside to my garage. The cold October air bit through my flannel shirt as I fired up a Lucky Strike and tried to process what I'd just learned. 20 years, 2 decades of marriage, of building a life together, of thinking we were partners. Our daughter Emma was 17, a senior in high school, and Lisa was a successful corporate attorney at Brennan Walsh and Associates downtown. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Or so I thought. The next morning brought an even bigger shock. The mailman handed me a certified letter from Pemberton and Associates, estate attorneys in Boston. My great-uncle Harold, a reclusive millionaire I'd met maybe 3 times in my life, had died and left me everything. $3.7 million. I stared at the letter in disbelief as Lisa walked into the kitchen, already dressed in her power suit and heels, coffee mug in hand. "What's that?" she asked, glancing at the official-looking envelope. "Nothing important," I lied, folding the letter and shoving it in my pocket. "Just some junk mail." But Lisa had lawyer instincts. She stepped closer, her perfume mixing with the coffee smell. That didn't look like junk mail, Jack. What was it really? Before I could answer, she snatched the envelope from the counter where I'd left it. Her eyes widened as she read the return address. "Estate attorneys? Jack, what's going on?" I had 2 choices: tell her the truth and watch her suddenly become the loving wife again, or keep this card close to my chest and see how deep this betrayal went. "My great-uncle Harold died," I said carefully. "Probably just some small inheritance or something." Lisa's demeanor shifted instantly. The cold, professional mask she'd been wearing for months melted away, replaced by warmth I hadn't seen in years. She moved closer, running her hand along my arm. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry for your loss. We should call them right away and find out what he left you." The sudden affection felt like acid in my wounds. This woman who'd been treating me like a roommate for months was now practically purring because she smelled money. That evening she outdid herself. Candlelit dinner, my favorite pot roast, and a bottle of wine that cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week. She laughed at my jokes, touched my hand across the table, and looked at me with eyes that sparkled with interest for the first time in forever. After dinner, she led me to the living room and curled up next to me on the couch, something she hadn't done since Obama was president. "Jack," she said softly, "I know I've been distant lately. Work has been so stressful, and I haven't been the wife you deserve. But I want to change that. I want us to be close again." If I hadn't read those text messages, I might have believed her. Instead, I watched this performance with growing disgust. She was playing me like a fiddle, and she thought I was too stupid to notice. "That's nice to hear," I said neutrally. She snuggled closer, her hand resting on my chest. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time we had another baby. Emma's almost grown up, and I miss having a little one around." A baby. After months of barely touching me, after years of saying she was done with diapers and sleepless nights, she suddenly wanted another child, right after learning about a potential inheritance. "Really?" I managed. "That's quite a change of heart." I know it seems sudden, but seeing that letter today made me realize how short life is, how important family is. She looked up at me with practiced sincerity. "What do you think?" What I thought was that she was the most manipulative person I'd ever met. What I thought was that she wanted to trap me with another kid before I found out about her affair. What I thought was that I'd married a stranger. "Let me think about it," I said. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. Lisa kept up her loving wife act, bringing me coffee in the morning, asking about my day, even suggesting we plan a romantic weekend getaway. Meanwhile, I watched her phone like a hawk, noting when she stepped outside to take calls or disappeared into the bathroom with her cell. I also made some calls of my own. The estate lawyers confirmed what the letter had said. Great Uncle Harold had left me his entire fortune, $3.7 million, plus a house in Bar Harbor and a portfolio of investments. The only catch was that the money wouldn't be released until all the paperwork was finalized, which could take several weeks. I decided to do some investigating of my own. On Thursday evening, I told Lisa I was going to my buddy Mike's house to watch the game. Instead, I parked across from the Marriott downtown and waited. Sure enough, at 8:30, Lisa's BMW pulled into the parking lot. A few minutes later, Brad's Tesla arrived. I watched them meet near the entrance, saw him put his hand on the small of her back as they walked inside together. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, smoking cigarettes and planning my next move. When they finally emerged, laughing and holding hands like teenagers, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. I was going to let this play out and see exactly how far they were willing to go. But first, I was going to send a little message. I waited until they drove away, then walked over to Brad's Tesla. Using a tube of lipstick I'd bought specifically for this purpose, I wrote across his windshield, "Hope you're insured for performance issues." It was petty, but it felt good. The next morning, my phone rang while I was under the hood of a Chevy Silverado. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Jack Morrison?" "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Claire Walsh from Brennan, Walsh & Associates. I'm an attorney here, and I need to speak with you about a confidential matter. Could we meet somewhere private?" Claire Walsh. I knew the name from Lisa's work stories. She was one of the senior partners, a sharp woman in her 50s with a reputation for being both brilliant and ruthlessly ethical. "What's this about?" "I'd rather not discuss it over the phone. Could you meet me at Rosie's Diner on Main Street at noon?" An hour later, I sat across from Claire Walsh in a corner booth at Rosie's, studying her face as she stirred her coffee. She was exactly as Lisa had described, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and intimidating as hell in her tailored suit. "Mr. Morrison, what I'm about to tell you could be considered a breach of attorney-client privilege, but my conscience won't let me stay silent." I leaned forward. "I'm listening." "Your wife came to me yesterday with a request. She wants me to help her secure your recent inheritance and ensure that you can't access it without her consent. She's also asked me to draft papers that would give her power of attorney over your financial affairs." The blood drained from my face. "What?" "She claims you've been acting erratically since receiving news of the inheritance. She says you're not mentally capable of handling that much money responsibly." Claire's expression was grim. "She also mentioned that you might be having an affair and that she needs to protect herself financially." I stared at her in disbelief. She's accusing me of having an affair? Mr. Morrison, I've been practicing law for 30 years, and I've seen every dirty trick in the book. Your wife is trying to manipulate the system to steal your inheritance. I can't be a party to that. Why are you telling me this? Claire's jaw tightened. Because I know Lisa well enough to recognize when she's lying, and because I have a feeling there's more to this story than she's telling me. I made a decision. There is. She's the one having an affair. With Brad Kellerman from your IT department. Claire's eyebrows rose slightly, but she didn't look surprised. Can you prove it? I saw them together last night at the Marriott. I've also seen their text messages. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to give you some advice, as one human being to another. Document everything. Get evidence. And get yourself a good attorney, because your wife is about to declare war on you. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Honey, I have wonderful news. I'm pregnant. Can't wait to tell you tonight. I showed the message to Claire, who read it and shook her head in disgust. How long since you two were intimate? She asked delicately. 3 months, at least. Then either it's not yours or she's lying about being pregnant to manipulate you. Claire finished her coffee and stood up. Mr. Morrison, your wife just made a very big mistake by coming to me. I'm going to make sure she doesn't succeed in stealing your inheritance, but you need to be prepared for what's coming. As I drove back to my shop, my phone rang again. This time, it was Lisa. Jack, I have the most amazing news. Yeah, I got your text. Isn't it wonderful? I know we talked about having another baby, and it's like the universe heard us. Her voice was bright and excited, the perfect performance of a happy, expectant mother. That's quite a surprise, I said carefully. I know. I can barely believe it myself. I was going to wait until tonight to tell you, but I was just too excited. Oh, Jack, this is going to change everything for us. She was right about that. It was going to change everything, just not in the way she expected. That night, Lisa put on another award-worthy performance. She'd made my favorite meal, lit candles, and even bought a bottle of sparkling cider to celebrate our news. To our growing family, she said, raising her glass. I clinked my glass against hers and smiled. To new beginnings. After dinner, she curled up next to me on the couch again, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. I've been thinking about names, she said dreamily. If it's a boy, maybe Harold, after your uncle? The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost insulting. She was naming our fake baby after the man whose money she was trying to steal. That's a nice thought, I said, but maybe we should wait until we're further along before we start planning. Of course, I'm just so excited. She looked up at me with those practiced, loving eyes. Jack, I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but this baby is going to be a fresh start for us. I can feel it. What she couldn't feel was the storm that was about to hit her. The next few days were a masterclass in deception from both sides. Lisa continued her loving wife routine while secretly meeting with lawyers and doctors to support her pregnancy claim and her case for controlling my inheritance. Meanwhile, I began building my own case with the help of Claire Walsh, who had agreed to represent me in what was shaping up to be an ugly battle. I also started documenting everything. I bought a small digital recorder and began keeping a journal of Lisa's lies and manipulations. Every fake smile, every calculated touch, every spontaneous suggestion about our future went into my growing file of evidence. On Monday morning, I was changing the oil on a Ford F-150 when my daughter Emma walked into the shop. She was supposed to be in school, but there she stood in her designer jeans and North Face jacket, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Dad, we need to talk. I wiped my hands on a rag and studied her face. Emma had always been more like her mother than me, ambitious, image-conscious, and a little too comfortable with bending the truth when it suited her. What's up, sweetheart? Mom told me about the baby. And about Uncle Harold's money. Of course she did. Lisa was building her army of allies, starting with our daughter. What about them? Emma shifted uncomfortably. Mom's worried about you. She says you've been acting weird since you found out about the inheritance. She thinks maybe you're not handling it well. I felt a flash of anger but kept my voice level. What do you think? I think... Emma paused, choosing her words carefully. I think Mom's right. You have been different lately, more distant, and some of your friends have been saying things. What friends? What things? Brad Kellerman came by the house yesterday to help Mom with some computer stuff. He said you've been acting hostile toward him lately, that you left some weird message on his car. The little bastard was playing the victim card, and apparently he was bold enough to come to my house while I wasn't there. Emma, there are things going on that you don't understand. Then explain them to me. Her voice rose, and I could see Lisa's influence in her tone. Mom says you might be having some kind of breakdown. She's scared, Dad. We both are. This was Lisa's strategy. Paint me as unstable, gather support from family and friends, then use that to justify taking control of my money and my life. I'm not having a breakdown, Emma, but I am dealing with some difficult situations. Like what? I looked at my 17-year-old daughter and realized I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. She wasn't ready to learn that her mother was a lying, cheating manipulator who was using a fake pregnancy to steal money. Just some complicated legal stuff with the inheritance. Nothing for you to worry about. Emma's expression softened slightly. Dad, I know this is a lot of money, and it's probably overwhelming, but you don't have to handle it alone. Mom and I want to help. I appreciate that, sweetheart, but I've got it under control. She studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. Okay, but promise me you'll talk to someone if you need help, a counselor or something. Mom's already made some calls to find someone good. Of course she had. Lisa was covering all the bases, building a paper trail that would support her claims that I was mentally unstable. After Emma left, I called Claire Walsh. They're moving faster than I expected, she said after I filled her in. Lisa's already filed preliminary paperwork claiming you're mentally incompetent to handle your inheritance. She's also scheduled appointments with 2 different psychiatrists, claiming she's concerned about your mental health. Can she do that? She can try, but she'll need evidence, and right now all she has is her word against yours. However, if she can get your daughter to testify that you've been acting erratically, and if she can get a psychiatrist to suggest you need evaluation, she might be able to convince a judge to freeze your assets temporarily. What do I need to do? Keep documenting everything. And we need to prove she's lying about the pregnancy. Do you think you could get access to her medical records? Probably not legally. Then we'll have to find another way. In the meantime, I'm going to file a counterclaim alleging that Lisa is the one acting in bad faith. I'll also request a DNA test for the baby, which should be interesting since she claims to be only a few weeks pregnant. That afternoon, I decided to take a more direct approach. I drove to Brad Kellerman's apartment complex, a trendy development on the outskirts of town where young professionals paid too much for granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. I found his Tesla in the parking lot and waited. An hour later, he emerged from the building, gym bag in hand, looking like he was headed to work out. He was younger than me by at least 10 years, with the kind of lean, athletic build that came from expensive personal trainers and protein shakes. "Hey, Brad," I called out as he approached his car. He stopped short when he saw me, his face cycling through surprise, guilt, and fear before settling on fake friendliness. "Jack, hey man, what brings you to this part of town?" "Just wanted to have a chat, man to man." Brad's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed nervously. "Sure, what about?" "About my wife, and your extracurricular activities." The color drained from his face. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. The Marriott Hotel, Thursday night. Ring any bells?" Brad looked around the parking lot like he was planning an escape route. "Look, Jack, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is that you thought I was too stupid to figure it out. I stepped closer, and Brad instinctively backed up against his car. How long has it been going on? Jack, I really don't... How long? My voice was quiet, but hard as steel. Brad's shoulders sagged in defeat. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of playing the fool at my own barbecues, of watching this punk shake my hand while he was screwing my wife behind my back. Whose idea was it to claim she's pregnant? What? I don't know anything about... Cut the shit, Brad. Whose idea? He ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair. Lisa said she needed time to figure things out, that you were getting suspicious and she needed to buy some space to think. And you went along with it. I didn't know she was going to fake a pregnancy. She just said she needed to keep you happy for a while longer. A while longer until what? Brad's face went pale again. Until she could get control of your inheritance and file for divorce. There it was, the full plan, laid out by my wife's lover in a parking lot confession. Lisa wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to steal my money and leave me with nothing. You know what, Brad? You've been very helpful. I smiled, and something in my expression made him flinch. But I think it's time you found a new hobby. Jack, look, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. Oh, but they have gone this far, and now you're going to help me fix the situation. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed him the voice recording app. I mean you're going to tell Lisa that you recorded our entire conversation and that you're going to the police if she doesn't come clean about the fake pregnancy and drop her claim on my inheritance. I can't do that. She'll what? Fire you? Sue you? Ruin your reputation? I laughed. Brad, she's already planning to throw you under the bus once she gets what she wants. You're just a tool to her, and tools get discarded when they're no longer useful. He stared at me, processing the truth of what I'd said. Think about it, I continued. Do you really think Lisa's going to leave her successful marriage and comfortable life for a guy who makes a third of what I do? You're a distraction, not a future husband. Brad's face crumpled as the reality of his situation hit him. He'd been played just as much as I had, just in a different way. What do you want me to do? I want you to call Lisa right now and tell her it's over. Tell her you can't handle the stress of the affair and the lies, and that you're backing out of whatever plan she's got cooking. And if I don't? Then I'll make sure everyone in town knows exactly what kind of man you are. Your clients, your co-workers, your family. I'll put up billboards if I have to. Brad pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed Lisa's number. I listened as he delivered the breakup speech, stumbling over words as Lisa apparently tried to talk him out of it. No, Lisa, I'm done. This is too complicated and I can't handle the pressure anymore. I'm sorry. He hung up and looked at me with a mixture of relief and fear. Good boy, I said. Now, if I were you, I'd start looking for a new job in a different town, because this story isn't over yet. I left Brad standing in the parking lot and drove home, feeling better than I had in weeks. Phase 1 of my revenge was complete. Now it was time for Phase 2. When I walked into the house, Lisa was pacing in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked up when she saw me, her face a mask of barely controlled panic. I have to go, she said into the phone and hung up. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine. Everything's fine. But her voice was strained, and I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes as she tried to figure out how to salvage her plan. How was your day? I continued, playing the oblivious husband. Good. Busy at work. She forced a smile. How about you? Oh, you know, same old stuff. Fixed a transmission, changed some oil, had an interesting conversation with Brad Kellerman. Lisa's face went white. What? Yeah, ran into him at the gas station. Seemed pretty upset about something. Said he was thinking about leaving town. I wouldn't know anything about that. Huh, that's weird. Because he mentioned your name. Lisa's hands started shaking. Jack, I think we need to talk. About what? About everything. About our marriage. About the baby, about the future. I sat down at the kitchen table and looked at her expectantly. I'm listening. Lisa took a deep breath, and I could see her mentally rehearsing her next lie. Jack, I haven't been completely honest with you. About what? About the pregnancy. I might have been mistaken. I took a home test, but it might have been a false positive. Really? That's quite a coincidence. I know the timing seems strange, but these things happen. I was so excited about the possibility that I might have jumped to conclusions. I nodded thoughtfully. So you're saying you're not pregnant? I don't think so. I'm going to make an appointment with my doctor to be sure, but I wanted to tell you first. That's very considerate of you. Lisa studied my face, trying to gauge whether I was buying her new story. Are you disappointed? A little, I lied. But these things happen, right? No point getting upset about it. Right. Exactly. She looked relieved. I'm glad you understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. That night, Lisa was back to her cold, distant self. No more cuddling on the couch, no more loving touches, no more talk about our future together. With Brad out of the picture and her pregnancy lie exposed, she was regrouping, trying to figure out her next move. But I already knew what it would be. Claire Walsh had warned me that Lisa would likely try to claim I was abusive or mentally unstable, anything to justify taking control of my inheritance. And sure enough, the next morning I got a call from Emma. Dad, Mom wants to have a family meeting tonight. She says there are some things we need to discuss. What kind of things? I don't know. She just seemed really serious about it. A family meeting. Lisa was going to try to turn our daughter against me, to make Emma believe that I was the problem in our marriage. It was a smart move, but I was ready for it. That evening, the three of us sat around the dining room table like we were negotiating a business deal instead of discussing our family. Lisa had prepared notes, which should have been my first clue about how orchestrated this was going to be. Emma, your father and I have been having some problems, Lisa began, her voice carefully modulated to sound reasonable and concerned. I think it's time we were honest with you about what's been going on. Emma looked between us nervously. What kind of problems? Well, since your father received news about his inheritance, he's been acting differently. More aggressive, more paranoid. I'm worried about his mental health. That's not true, I said calmly. Jack, you left a threatening message on a coworker's car. You've been following me and questioning my whereabouts. You've been acting hostile toward our friends. Emma's eyes widened. Dad, is that true? Some of it, I admitted. But there are reasons for my behavior that your mother isn't telling you. What reasons? Lisa challenged. This was it, the moment of truth. I could either let Lisa continue her manipulation, or I could blow up her entire world. I chose option 2. The reason I've been suspicious is because your mother has been having an affair with Brad Kellerman for the past 6 months. The silence in the room was deafening. Emma stared at me in shock, while Lisa's face went through a series of expressions before settling on righteous indignation. That's a lie, Lisa snapped. Jack, how could you say such a thing in front of Emma? Because it's true. I've seen the text messages, I've witnessed the hotel meetings, and I've spoken to Brad directly. Emma looked at her mother. Mom? Emma, your father is having some kind of breakdown. He's making up stories, seeing things that aren't there. This is exactly what I was worried about. I have proof, I said quietly. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of my conversation with Brad, the part where he admitted to the affair and revealed Lisa's plan to steal my inheritance. Emma's face went white as she listened to Brad's voice confessing everything. When the recording ended, She looked at her mother with a mixture of hurt and disgust. "Mom, is this true?" Lisa's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. "Emma, it's complicated. You don't understand what it's like being married to someone who... Is it true?" Emma's voice was sharp now, cutting through her mother's excuses. Lisa's shoulders sagged. "Yes, but it's not what you think. What I think is that you've been lying to me and Dad for months while you screwed around with some guy from your office." "Emma, please. And you faked being pregnant? What the hell, Mom?" I watched my daughter process the truth about her mother, and I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because Lisa's lies were finally exposed. Sadness because Emma was learning that the world was a much uglier place than she'd realized. "Emma, I know this is hard to understand, but your father and I haven't been happy for a long time. I made some mistakes, but I was trying to find a way to fix things. By stealing Dad's inheritance? I wasn't stealing anything. I was trying to protect our family's financial future." "Our family?" Emma's voice rose. "You were planning to leave Dad? You just said so on the recording." Lisa looked trapped, caught between her lies and the truth. "I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted." "You knew exactly what you wanted," I said. "You wanted my money and a new life with your boyfriend. The only thing you didn't count on was getting caught." Emma stood up abruptly. "I can't listen to any more of this. Mom, I can't believe you would do this to our family." "Emma, wait!" But Emma was already walking away, leaving Lisa and me alone at the table. "Well," I said after we heard Emma's bedroom door slam, "that went better than expected." Lisa glared at me with pure hatred. "You bastard! You turned my own daughter against me." I told her the truth. "You're the one who turned her against you with your lies and manipulation." "This isn't over, Jack. I'll fight you for every penny of that inheritance." "Good luck with that, especially now that I have evidence of your adultery and your attempts to defraud me." Lisa's face went pale as she realized the full extent of her situation. "What do you want?" "I want a divorce. I want you out of this house. And I want you to drop all claims to my inheritance." "And if I don't?" I smiled, and something in my expression made her flinch. "Then things are going to get very unpleasant for you." Lisa stared at me for a long moment, then pushed back from the table and stood up. "You think you've won, but this is far from over." She walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my plans for revenge. Because Lisa was right about one thing. This was far from over. The next few days were a cold war in our house. Lisa moved into the guest bedroom and barely spoke to me, except to arrange meetings with her lawyer. Emma avoided both of us, spending most of her time at friends' houses or locked in her room. The atmosphere was so toxic, you could practically taste it. But I wasn't just sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I was planning. Claire Walsh had been busy building our case, and the evidence was overwhelming. Lisa's attempts to claim mental incompetence on my part had backfired spectacularly when Claire presented the recordings of her conversations with Brad and her own admissions of adultery. The fake pregnancy claim was the final nail in her coffin. "She's agreed to mediation," Claire told me over coffee at Rosie's diner. "Her lawyer knows they don't have a leg to stand on, so they want to settle out of court." "What are they offering?" "Standard divorce terms. She keeps her retirement accounts and personal property, you keep the inheritance and the house. Joint custody of Emma, though at 17, Emma gets to choose where she wants to live." "And what do I get for 6 months of lies, manipulation, and emotional torture?" Claire raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "I want her to face consequences. Real consequences. I want everyone in this town to know exactly what kind of person she is." "Jack, I understand you're angry, but revenge isn't... This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. Lisa tried to steal my inheritance, destroy my reputation, and turn my own daughter against me. She doesn't get to just walk away and start over somewhere else. Claire studied my face. What are you planning? Nothing illegal. Nothing that will get me in trouble. But I'm going to make sure that Lisa's actions have consequences. That afternoon, I drove to the Millbrook Community Center, where the annual Fall Festival was being planned. The festival was the biggest social event of the year, drawing people from all over the county for food, games, and entertainment. This year's theme was Truth and Reconciliation, which seemed perfect for my purposes. I found Janet Morrison, the festival coordinator, no relation despite the name, setting up tables in the main hall. "Jack, how nice to see you. How are you holding up with all the, well, you know?" Word traveled fast in a small town, and Lisa's affair had already become the subject of widespread gossip. "I'm doing fine, Janet. Actually, I wanted to volunteer for the festival, maybe help with the entertainment." "That's wonderful. We could always use more volunteers. What did you have in mind?" "Well, I've been thinking about doing a little presentation. You know, sharing some personal experiences about truth and honesty in relationships." Janet's eyes lit up with interest. "That sounds perfect for our theme. Would you be comfortable talking about your recent difficulties?" "Absolutely. I think it's important for people to understand how lies and deception can destroy families. Maybe my story can help others avoid the same mistakes." "Oh, Jack, that's so brave of you, and so generous to share your pain to help others." If only she knew. The Fall Festival was scheduled for the following Saturday, which gave me a week to prepare my presentation. I spent that time carefully crafting what I was going to say, making sure every word was true, every accusation was backed by evidence, and every revelation was designed for maximum impact. I also spent time gathering allies. Mike Brennan, my old friend who ran the boxing gym downtown, was more than happy to help once I explained the situation. "That's cold, even for a lawyer," he said after listening to my story. "Lisa always seemed a little too slick for my taste, but I never figured her for a cheat." "Will you help me?" "Whatever you need, buddy. That woman tried to steal your inheritance and destroy your reputation. She deserves whatever's coming to her." I also reached out to some of Lisa's former friends, women who had been pushed out of her social circle over the years for various petty reasons. They were very interested to learn about Lisa's true character. By Friday evening, everything was in place. Lisa had no idea what was coming, which made her attempts at normal conversation almost amusing. "I'll be at the office tomorrow working on the Henderson case," she said over dinner. "Will you and Emma be going to the festival?" "Probably," I said. "Emma loves the festival." "Well, have fun. Try not to do anything dramatic." If she only knew. Saturday dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the fall festival. By 10 a.m., the community center was packed with families enjoying the food booths, craft displays, and children's activities. The main presentation hall was set up with a small stage and microphone system for the various speakers and entertainers scheduled throughout the day. I was scheduled to speak at 2 p.m., right after lunch when the crowd would be at its largest. Lisa was indeed at her office, which meant she would miss the main event but would certainly hear about it soon enough. Emma had come with me, though she seemed reluctant to be seen in public with either of her parents given the family drama. She sat with some friends near the back of the hall, probably hoping to disappear into the crowd. At 2 o'clock sharp, Janet Morrison took the stage to introduce me. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a longtime member of our community who has volunteered to share some personal experiences related to our theme of truth and reconciliation. Please welcome Jack Morrison." I walked onto the stage to polite applause, looking out at the sea of familiar faces. There was Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store, Bob Walsh from the hardware store, dozens of my customers and neighbors, and scattered throughout the crowd, Lisa's former friends and current enemies. "Thank you all for coming today," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. When Janet asked me to speak about truth and reconciliation, I thought long and hard about what I could share that might be helpful to others. and I realized that sometimes the most powerful lessons come from our most painful experiences. The crowd settled in, expecting a generic speech about forgiveness and moving forward. They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife of 20 years has been having an affair with a coworker. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that she had been planning to steal my inheritance and destroy my reputation to cover up her infidelity. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was not the kind of speech they were expecting at a family festival. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This is a private matter that shouldn't be aired in public, and you're probably right. But here's the thing. My wife didn't treat this as a private matter. She involved our daughter, our friends, our community in her web of lies. She tried to convince people that I was mentally unstable, that I was abusive, that I couldn't be trusted with money or responsibility. The murmur grew louder. I could see people pulling out their phones, some to record my speech, others to text friends who weren't there. So I thought it was only fair that the same community she tried to turn against me should hear the truth. All of it. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small digital recorder. This is a recording of my wife's lover admitting to their affair and revealing her plan to steal my inheritance. I pressed play, and Brad's voice filled the hall, confessing to the affair and detailing Lisa's manipulation. The crowd was dead silent now, hanging on every word. When the recording ended, I continued. But wait, there's more. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system. These are text messages between my wife and her lover, discussing their relationship and laughing about what a fool I was. I read several of the most damning messages aloud, each one drawing gasps and murmurs from the crowd. The messages where they mocked me, where they planned their meetings, where they discussed their future together after Lisa got control of my money. And finally, I said, here's a recording of my wife admitting to faking a pregnancy to manipulate me into staying with her while she executed her plan. I played the recording of Lisa confessing to the fake pregnancy, her voice clearly audible as she tried to backpedal and make excuses. By now, the crowd was in an uproar. People were talking loudly, pointing, and recording everything on their phones. I could see Emma near the back, her face buried in her hands in embarrassment. Now, you might be wondering why I'm sharing all this with you, I continued, raising my voice to be heard over the noise. It's because I believe in truth and consequences. My wife tried to destroy my life based on lies and manipulation. She tried to turn this community against me to cover up her own crimes. And I think you all deserve to know the truth about the kind of person she really is. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Lisa Morrison is a liar, a cheat, and a thief. She betrayed her marriage vows. She betrayed her daughter's trust. And she tried to betray this entire community with her false accusations against me. And I wanted to make sure that everyone knows it before she tries to reinvent herself as the victim in this situation. The crowd was on its feet now, some people applauding, others arguing among themselves, everyone talking at once. I could see Janet Morrison near the side of the stage, looking horrified at what her truth and reconciliation speech had become. Thank you for your time, I concluded. And remember, the truth always comes out eventually. The only question is whether you're on the right side of it when it does. I walked off the stage to a mixture of applause, boos, and stunned silence. Emma was nowhere to be seen, having apparently fled in embarrassment, but I didn't care. I had accomplished what I set out to do. Within an hour, video clips of my speech were circulating on social media. By evening, the story had spread throughout the county. Lisa's reputation was in ruins, her career was likely over, and everyone in town knew exactly what kind of person she was. My phone started ringing around 6 p.m. It was Lisa, and she was hysterical. How could you do this to me? How could you humiliate me in front of the entire town? The same way you tried to humiliate me, I replied calmly. The only difference is that everything I said was true. You've destroyed my life. My career is over. I can't show my face anywhere in this town. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat on your husband and try to steal his money. This is cruel and vindictive, and this is justice, Lisa. You tried to destroy my reputation with lies. I destroyed yours with the truth. Seems fair to me. She was crying now, her voice broken and desperate. Jack, please. I know I made mistakes, but this is too much. Can't we work something out? We can work out a divorce. A quick, clean divorce where you take your personal belongings and nothing else, and then you leave town and never come back. You can't force me to leave town. I'm not forcing you to do anything, but I think you'll find that staying in Millbrook is going to be very uncomfortable for you from now on. She hung up on me, but I knew she'd be back. She had no choice now but to accept my terms. Emma came home around 9 p.m., her face red from crying. Dad, how could you do that? Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? I'm sorry you were embarrassed, sweetheart, but your mother's actions had consequences, and it was time for her to face them. You humiliated her in front of the entire town. My friends were recording it and posting it online. Your mother tried to do the same thing to me. She told lies to turn people against me, to make them think I was crazy or abusive. The only difference is that I told the truth. Emma stared at me with a mixture of anger and confusion. This isn't who you are, Dad. You're not cruel like this. You're right. I'm not usually cruel. But I'm also not usually betrayed by the person I trusted most in the world. So, you decided to get revenge? I decided to make sure the truth came out. Your mother made her choices, Emma. She chose to have an affair. She chose to lie and manipulate. She chose to try to steal my inheritance. All I did was make sure people knew about those choices. Emma shook her head. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm going to stay at Sarah's house for a while. Emma, wait. But she was already heading for the door, leaving me alone in the house that had once been our home. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat in my living room, thinking about the day's events. I had achieved everything I set out to do. Lisa's reputation was destroyed, her career was over, and everyone in town knew the truth about what she had done to me. So why didn't I feel better about it? Maybe it was because seeing Emma's face, seeing the pain and confusion in her eyes, reminded me that revenge always has collateral damage. Maybe it was because I realized that destroying Lisa didn't actually fix what she had broken. Or maybe it was because I knew that this was just the beginning. Lisa wasn't going to go quietly. She was going to fight back, and when she did, things were going to get even uglier. But I was ready for that. I had spent weeks planning this moment, and I had spent years learning how to fix things that were broken. The only difference was that this time, I wasn't trying to fix anything. I was trying to destroy it completely. Lisa disappeared for 3 days after my festival speech. Her car was gone from the driveway, her clothes were missing from the closet, and she wasn't answering her phone. For a moment, I thought maybe she had taken my advice and left town permanently. I should have known better. On Tuesday morning, I was under the hood of a Chevy Tahoe when Mike Brennan burst into my shop, his face grim. Jack, you need to see this. He handed me his phone, which was open to the local news website. The headline read, Local businessman accused of domestic abuse and financial fraud. The article was a masterpiece of manipulation, painting me as an unstable, abusive husband who had inherited millions and was using my newfound wealth to destroy my innocent wife. According to the story, Lisa had been forced into hiding after I threatened her with violence and used my money to hire private investigators to stalk and harass her. She's claiming you doctored those recordings, Mike said. Says the whole thing was an elaborate setup to cover up your own affair and financial crimes. I scrolled through the article, marveling at Lisa's ability to twist the truth. She had found a way to make herself the victim, and me, the villain, complete with quotes from anonymous sources who claimed to have witnessed my erratic and threatening behavior. "There's more," Mike said grimly. "She's filed a restraining order against you. Claims you've been stalking her and threatening her safety." My phone rang before I could respond. It was Claire Walsh. "Jack, we have a problem. Lisa's hired a PR firm and a new legal team. They're going full scorched earth." "I just saw the news article." "That's just the beginning. They've scheduled a press conference for this afternoon where Lisa is going to tell her side of the story. They're painting you as an abusive husband who used his inheritance to wage a campaign of harassment against his innocent wife. But we have evidence. We have recordings, text messages, which they're claiming are fabricated. They've hired a digital forensics expert who's going to testify that the recordings could have been doctored using readily available software." I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. Can they prove that? They don't have to prove it. They just have to create reasonable doubt. And in the court of public opinion, doubt is enough. I spent the rest of the morning watching my reputation get shredded in real time. The story was picked up by regional news outlets, then national ones. Social media exploded with opinions from people who had never heard of me before, but were suddenly experts on my character and motivations. Justice for Lisa started trending on Twitter, complete with photos of Lisa looking vulnerable and sympathetic in her lawyer's office. Meanwhile, photos from my festival speech made me look angry and vindictive, exactly the kind of man who might abuse his wife. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the Marriott downtown, the same hotel where I had caught Lisa with Brad. The irony wasn't lost on me. I decided to attend. The hotel's conference room was packed with reporters, cameras, and supporters that Lisa's PR team had obviously recruited for the occasion. Lisa sat at a table in front, flanked by her lawyers, looking pale and fragile in a conservative black dress that made her appear younger and more vulnerable. I slipped in through the back door and found a spot along the wall where I could watch the show. Lisa's lead attorney, a sharp-dressed man from Boston named Richard Kellerman, no relation to Brad, apparently, opened with a statement about domestic abuse and the power imbalances that allow wealthy men to destroy their wives with impunity. "My client has been the victim of a calculated campaign of harassment and intimidation," he said. "Mr. Morrison used his inheritance to hire private investigators, to spread false information, and to publicly humiliate a woman whose only crime was trying to protect herself from an increasingly unstable and abusive husband." Then it was Lisa's turn to speak. She approached the microphone with tears in her eyes, her voice shaking with perfectly calculated emotion. "I know that many of you have seen the recordings that my husband played at the festival," she began. "What you don't know is that those recordings were taken out of context and digitally altered to make me appear guilty of things I never did." She paused, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "The truth is that I was trying to protect myself and my daughter from a man who had become increasingly violent and unpredictable since receiving his inheritance. When I tried to seek legal advice about protecting our family's assets, Jack became enraged. He began following me, threatening me, and eventually staging this elaborate public humiliation to destroy my reputation and my career." A reporter raised her hand. "Mrs. Morrison, are you denying that you had an affair?" Lisa's voice broke slightly. "I made some mistakes in my marriage. I sought comfort from a friend during a very difficult time. But that doesn't justify what my husband has done to me." Another reporter: "What about the pregnancy claim?" I thought I might be pregnant, and I was excited about the possibility of saving our marriage. When I realized I was mistaken, I told Jack immediately. He's twisted that honest mistake into evidence of some elaborate deception. It was a masterful performance. Lisa had taken every piece of evidence against her and found a way to reframe it as proof of my abuse and manipulation. She was the victim, I was the villain, and the media was eating it up. but I wasn't done yet. When the Q&A session ended, I stood up and raised my hand. I have a question. The room went silent as everyone turned to look at me. Lisa's face went white when she saw me. Mr. Morrison, her lawyer said quickly, this is not an appropriate forum for— It's okay, I said, walking toward the front of the room. I just want to ask my wife one simple question. The reporters were frantically taking notes and adjusting their cameras. This was better than they could have hoped for. I stopped about 10 feet from Lisa's table and looked directly at her. Lisa, if I'm such a dangerous, abusive husband, why did you text Brad Kellerman just yesterday asking him to meet you at this same hotel? Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone. Really? Because I have a screenshot of the text message. Would you like me to read it to everyone? Her lawyer jumped up. Mr. Morrison, you're in violation of a restraining order by being here. I'm calling security. That's fine, I said. But first, let me share something interesting I discovered yesterday. I addressed the room full of reporters. You see, after Lisa disappeared for 3 days, I got curious about where she might have gone, so I called around to some hotels in the area just to make sure she was safe. Turns out, she's been staying right here at the Marriott, in the same room where she used to meet her lover. The reporters were scribbling furiously now. But here's the really interesting part. The hotel's security cameras show her meeting with Brad Kellerman yesterday evening, the same Brad Kellerman who she claims manipulated her into an affair. Funny how she keeps going back to her manipulator, don't you think? Lisa's lawyer was on his phone now, presumably calling security, but I wasn't finished. I also did some research into Lisa's new legal team. Turns out they're the same lawyers who represented Brad's ex-wife in their divorce last year. Small world, isn't it? A reporter shouted out, "Are you saying this is all connected?" I'm saying that my wife and her lover have been planning this character assassination for months. They knew that once the truth about their affair came out, they would need a way to discredit me and make themselves look like victims. Security guards were moving toward me now, but the reporters were more interested in the story than in removing me. Mr. Morrison, one of them called out, do you have evidence to support these claims? I smiled. Actually, I do. I pulled out a small digital recorder, a different one from the device I had used at the festival. This is a recording of a conversation between Lisa and Brad from yesterday evening, discussing their strategy for this press conference and their plans to split my inheritance once they successfully paint me as an abuser. Lisa's face went from white to green. That's illegal. You can't record people without their consent. Actually, in Maine, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. And since Brad consented to being recorded, he's the one who called me and suggested we meet to work things out. This recording is perfectly legal. The security guards had reached me, but the reporters were shouting questions, and the room was in chaos. Play the recording, someone yelled. I looked at Lisa, who was staring at me with pure hatred and fear. Should I play it, Lisa? Or would you like to tell everyone the truth yourself? Her lawyer was trying to restore order, but it was too late. The narrative had shifted again, and everyone in the room could see the panic in Lisa's eyes. The truth, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, is that Lisa Morrison is exactly what I said she was at the festival. A liar, a cheat, and a manipulator who will say anything and destroy anyone to get what she wants. Security was escorting me toward the door now, but I had one more thing to say. And the real tragedy is that she's so good at it, she almost convinced all of you that I was the villain in this story. As they led me out of the conference room, I could hear the reporters shouting questions at Lisa, who had apparently fled the scene. Her carefully orchestrated press conference had turned into a disaster, and her credibility was in tatters. My phone was ringing before I even reached the parking lot. It was Claire Walsh. Jack, please tell me you actually have that recording. Of course I do. Lisa and Brad are nothing if not predictable. Thank God, because after that performance, I think we can not only get the restraining order dismissed, but we can probably file charges for perjury and filing false police reports. What about the inheritance? With this new evidence, Lisa's claim is dead in the water. The money is yours, free and clear. I sat in my truck in the hotel parking lot, watching through the windows as Lisa's press conference completely fell apart. Reporters were making phone calls, lawyers were arguing with each other, and Lisa was nowhere to be seen. It was over. Finally, completely over. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dad, I saw the news. I'm sorry I doubted you. Can I come home?" I typed back, "Of course. I'll pick up pizza on the way." As I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened over the past month. Lisa had tried to destroy me with lies, and I had destroyed her with the truth. She had tried to steal my inheritance, and instead she had lost everything. Her marriage, her career, her reputation, and her relationship with our daughter. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. The house was quiet when I got home, but it felt different somehow. Lighter. Like a weight had been lifted from the air itself. Emma arrived an hour later, looking older than her 17 years, but relieved to be home. "Dad, I owe you an apology." "No, you don't. You were trying to believe the best about your mother. That's not something to apologize for. But I should have trusted you. Emma, your mother is very good at manipulation. She fooled me for months, and I'm supposed to be the one who knows her best. You're 17 years old. You shouldn't have to be an expert at detecting lies from your own mother." We ate pizza in comfortable silence for a while before Emma spoke again. "What happens now?" "Now your mother and I get divorced, and you and I figure out how to move forward." "Are you going to be okay, with all the money and everything?" I laughed. "I think I'll manage. The question is, what do you want to do? You could go to any college in the country now, study anything you want." Emma smiled for the first time in weeks. "I want to study psychology. After watching Mom manipulate everyone, I think I want to understand how people's minds work." "That sounds perfect." Later that evening, after Emma had gone to bed, I sat on my front porch with a beer and watched the sun set over Millbrook. Tomorrow the lawyers would finish the paperwork that would officially end my marriage and secure my inheritance. Lisa would probably leave town, and life would go back to some version of normal. But I had learned something important over the past month. The truth is a powerful weapon, but it's also a double-edged sword. I had used it to destroy my wife's lies and protect myself, but I had also used it to hurt people and damage relationships. The question was whether it had been worth it. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed Lisa's number. "Hello, Lisa." "Jack." Her voice was quiet, defeated. "I'm leaving town tomorrow. I wanted to call and I wanted to say I'm sorry." "For which part? The affair, the lies, or trying to steal my money?" "For all of it. For everything. I know you probably don't believe me, but I never meant for things to go this far." "What did you think was going to happen, Lisa? Did you really think you could destroy my life and I would just let it happen?" I thought I could control the situation. I thought I was smarter than you." "You were wrong." "Yes. I was wrong about a lot of things." She paused. "Jack, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but will you tell Emma that I love her? And that I'm sorry for putting her through all of this?" "Tell her yourself. She won't take my calls." I sighed. "Lisa, you destroyed our daughter's trust along with everything else. That's going to take time to heal, if it ever does." "I know. I wanted her to know. I'll tell her." "Thank you." There was a long pause. "Jack, do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about that question for a moment. A month ago, I would have said absolutely not, but sitting there on my porch with my daughter safe in her room and my future secure, I found that the anger was starting to fade. "I don't know, Lisa. Maybe someday, but not today." I understand. Goodbye, Jack. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and finished my beer, thinking about forgiveness and revenge and the price of both. Lisa Morrison had tried to destroy my life with lies and manipulation. In response, I had destroyed hers with truth and consequences. We were even now, in a sense, though the cost had been higher than either of us had anticipated. But as I sat there in the gathering darkness, I realized that revenge, even justified revenge, doesn't actually fix what's broken. It doesn't heal the wounds or restore the trust or bring back the innocence that's been lost. All it does is ensure that everyone pays a price for the damage that's been done. And sometimes, that has to be enough. The next morning, I woke up to find that Lisa's car was gone from the driveway, along with the last of her belongings. She had left a note on the kitchen counter. The divorce papers are signed and notarized. My lawyer will be in touch about the final details. Please take care of Emma. L. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash, then made coffee and started planning the rest of my life. $3.7 million was more money than I had ever imagined having. I could retire, travel the world, buy anything I wanted. But as I sat in my kitchen, looking out at the garage where I had spent 20 years fixing other people's broken vehicles, I realized that I didn't want to change everything about my life. I liked fixing things. I was good at it. And maybe, with some of that inheritance money, I could expand the business, hire some employees, and fix even more things. Just not marriages. I was done trying to fix those. Emma came downstairs around 9, already dressed for school. "Mom's gone," she said, noticing the empty driveway. "Yeah, she left early this morning." "Did she say anything?" "She said to tell you that she loves you and she's sorry for everything." Emma nodded, her face carefully neutral. "I'm not ready to talk to her yet." "That's okay, you don't have to be." "Will I ever be?" "I don't know, sweetheart, that's up to you." Emma grabbed a piece of toast in her backpack. "I'm going to be late for school." "Emma?" She turned back to me. "I love you, and I'm proud of you for handling all this with such maturity." She smiled. "I love you too, Dad, and I'm proud of you for fighting back." After she left for school, I drove to my shop and spent the morning doing what I did best, fixing things that were broken. A transmission here, a brake job there, an oil change for Mrs. Henderson's ancient Buick. Around noon, Claire Walsh stopped by with the final divorce papers and the documentation confirming my inheritance. "It's official," she said, handing me a thick folder. "You're a free man and a millionaire." How does it feel? I thought about that question as I looked around my small, cluttered garage. "Different," I said finally, "but not as different as I thought it would." Claire smiled. "That's probably a good sign. Most people who come into sudden wealth either go crazy with it or become paralyzed by the responsibility. You seem to be handling it well." "I had a good teacher in consequences over the past month." "Speaking of consequences, you should know that Lisa's law firm fired her yesterday. Apparently, the publicity from all this made her a liability they couldn't afford." "And Brad?" "He quit and moved to California. Apparently, he decided that Maine wasn't agreeing with him anymore." I nodded. "Good. They deserve each other." Claire gathered up her briefcase and headed for the door. "Jack, can I give you some advice?" "Sure. Don't let what happened with Lisa make you cynical about everyone. There are still good people in the world, and you deserve to be happy." "I'll try to remember that." After she left, I spent the rest of the afternoon working on a particularly stubborn carburetor, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of diagnosis and repair. It was peaceful, meditative work that helped clear my head and settle my thoughts. Around 5 o'clock, Emma showed up at the shop, still in her school clothes, but with a determined look on her face. "Dad, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About what you said last night, about me being able to go to any college I want." "What about it?" "I want to stay local. Maybe go to the University of Maine. I don't want to be too far from home right now." I smiled. That sounds like a good plan. And I want to work here this summer, learn the business. You're going to need help if you're planning to expand. You want to be a mechanic? I want to learn how to fix things, real things, practical things. After watching Mom manipulate everyone with words and lies, I think I'd rather work with my hands. I felt a surge of pride and love for my daughter that nearly brought tears to my eyes. I'd like that very much. That evening, we ordered Chinese food and ate it while sitting on the living room floor, planning the future of Morrison's auto repair. Emma had ideas about updating the computer system, expanding our services, maybe even opening a second location in the next town over. We could call it Morrison and Daughter, she said, grinning. I like the sound of that. As we talked and planned, I realized that Lisa's betrayal, as painful as it had been, had also given me something unexpected. A closer relationship with my daughter, and a clearer vision of what I wanted my life to look like going forward. The inheritance would give us security and options, but the real treasure was sitting across from me, excitedly sketching out business plans on the back of a takeout menu. Around 10 o'clock, Emma went upstairs to do homework, leaving me alone with my thoughts once again. I walked out to my garage and looked around at the tools and equipment that had been my companions for 20 years. Tomorrow, I would start the process of rebuilding my life. I would expand the business, help Emma plan for college, and figure out what to do with more money than I had ever dreamed of having. But tonight, I was content to stand in my garage, surrounded by the familiar smells of motor oil and metal, and appreciate the simple satisfaction of having survived the worst month of my life with my integrity and my relationship with my daughter intact. Lisa Morrison had tried to destroy me with lies and manipulation, and for a while it had looked like she might succeed. But in the end, the truth had won out, and the consequences had fallen where they belonged. I had gotten my revenge. My daughter had learned some hard lessons about trust and deception, and we had both emerged stronger and wiser from the experience. It wasn't the ending I had expected when I first saw that text message on Lisa's phone, but it was the ending we deserved. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for.